Hello, this is me, Chris McGlade. Tickets are on sale for my critically acclaimed show, Forgiveness, at the iconic 100 Club on Oxford Street in London.
How can you write a comedy show about the murder of your father? Well, Chris McGlade, the Northern comedian, has, with his critically acclaimed show, Forgiveness, at the 100 Club on Oxford Street, October the 12th. Tickets at biletto.co.uk or at the 100 Club. Chris McGlade, Forgiveness.
Come down and see the show. Thanks very much.
From the people who turned a niche Scottish football podcast into a critically acclaimed TV show on the BBC, it's Review from the Terrace, a pop culture podcast network.
Hello and welcome to the Still Game podcast. My name is Bethany Tennick.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Scottish Rewatchable.
Hello and welcome to Review from the Turnbuckle.
Debating the best in movies, iconic TV shows, classic albums, peak era wrestling, and so much more.
Some intern got fired for that. Be like, Jared!
And what would you have done?
Loved it. What a moment. What a moment.
Review from the Terrace brings together a collection of professionals, pals, misfits, and special guest interviews.
The one and only Ewan Angus,
Craig G. Telfer,
director of Still Games, Michael Hines.
That's Review from the Terrace, a newly created podcast network with at least 2 shows dropping every week.
Hi neighbour, good to see you man, good to see you man. It's been a long time man.
Many people will say it's the biggest moment in the history of wrestling.
It's about 35. Find us on Acast or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Footballistically Arsenal, the world's only Arsenal-related podcast. You think you've seen others, but you haven't really. They don't really exist. They're figments of your imagination. This is the only one. This is the only one where we rotate guests every week. Me and my co-host Josh the Bear Landy. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Boydo.
And I think it's the only one where we also insist on doing predictions at the end of every podcast, by hook or by crook. Today we are joined. It's a double bear-a-thon today because we are joined by the living legend Gareth the Bear Parker, who has we were just discussing off-air, completed his 5th marathon. You're pretty much, Gareth, the Eddie Izzard of the Arsenal podcast, I feel.
Thank you, I think.
Yeah, it's a compliment. Yeah, no, he's a hero.
He is. I have actually, it's too long a story to tell, but I have a run-in with Eddie Izzard when I was putting a night on at the Comedy Store, and he had left his notebook whilst filming there the week before and came in a fluster trying to find it. And wasn't in the mood for jokes, which is a shame because there were 7 or so comedians backstage who were really up for telling jokes. And he went, help me find it. And someone, I think it was Sean Walsh, said, what does it look like? And he went, it's got a picture of Nelson Mandela on the front cover. And Justin Morehouse, like missing a beat, said, maybe it's taking a long walk to fucking freedom then. And everyone laughed. And Eddie went, oh, you think that's funny? Yeah. Anyway,
what a story this is anecdote gold, and we haven't even started. I'm glad I mentioned it.
I was party to upsetting a comedy, royalty.
This has not even been prearranged. Gareth, can we just name celebrities? Will you just have stories about them doing interesting things? Shall we try again, Boyd? Do someone else, Boyd.
Let me think. Who else does marathons? Jimmy Savile? Sorry.
No, although I did once go to Mount Vernon Hospital around that, but no, I was fortunate, I think, at that point in my life.
I do want to give a quick shout out to my friend Nick Deere, who's a very loyal listener to this podcast, Arsenal fan, and he told me today that because he said who's on the show today. And I said, Gareth the Bear Parker. He went, oh, I see Gareth. He sees you every game with your brother. But he said, and I quote, I'm too starstruck to say hello. So if a tall, handsome gent approaches you the next time you're at the Emirates, it's probably going to be Nick Deere, legendary public relations operative and all-round great man.
Well, that would be lovely. I think I forget what I look like sometimes as well. So like when I was running yesterday, I not my resting face is my running face is not a friendly one. So there was lots of, obviously London Marathon is an incredible event and there's a lot of love on the streets, but the only bit of crowd interaction I had really of any purpose was there was a bunch of anti-vaxxers down on the embankment. I just gave them the bird for the entire time I was running past them, to a huge roar from the rest of the crowd. That was, my interaction.
Wait a minute, you maintained an erect finger for how long?
About 20 seconds, yeah.
Okay.
It probably took
That's doable.
2 seconds off my time running form and all that. No, it was, what a bunch of clowns.
Those anti-vaxxers are unbelievable, aren't they? I've seen them because I live near London Bridge, and they sometimes go, when I think they're bored, when they haven't got anyone else to torment, they just hang out near the hospital near London Bridge, or there's a vaccination station under Bridge. That's why they go there. And there's always Jeremy Corbyn's brother. What's his name? Piers Corbyn. Piers Corbyn. Yeah. This is all he does with his life: is go around protesting about vaccination. And what an absolute fucking loser! Sorry, Josh.
Is he also a gooner? Because obviously Jeremy is. Is Piers?
Well, I hope not. I've never seen him.
He's not the only Piers. He's not the only Piers who might be a gooner that we don't like to associate ourselves with. So, anyway,
I've never seen. I think Piers Corbyn is too busy protesting about vaccination than he is.
No time to get to the Emirates. The only other, my favourite celebrity story, and it's very, very short, and it's one that actually, when I was on Tinder for a short period of time, was in my bio. Was Joan Collins once called me a cunt. And that is, I think, one of as a badge of honour that I wear.
That is topical in many ways, because Joan Collins is doing the publicity rounds at the moment. She's got a new book out of quite raunchy diaries. And there's also a documentary about her sister, Jackie Collins. But what was the context of her calling you a cunt? What have you actually done?
She called me a terrible cunt, actually. That's what she called. When we were doing a photo shoot, this is back in my PR days, 20-odd years ago, and she slipped over and everyone else retained a sort of steely demeanor, and I thought it was fucking hilarious. So, and she just told me to help her up, you terrible. Yeah.
I mean, fair enough. You are, in this case, maybe possibly a terrible cunt. Anyway, moving on to the matter at hand, Josh, which is the Arsenal performance. You're shaking your head in disbelief.
I'm not sure we should move on. I was thoroughly enjoying it, and I think there's much more gold. There's gold to get from Gareth. But we can briefly talk about Arsenal, maybe.
Yeah, we'll go back to Joan Collins and Cuntgate later. Yeah, you'll be pleased to know that my first question about the game on Saturday. You don't manage Alan Smith, do you, Josh? Because Josh, listeners, does manage various ex-footballers in various regards. You don't have a connection with ex-Arsenal forward Alan Smith. Oh, hold on. Okay,
I don't manage Alan, but I know him fairly well. We would have spoken 3 weeks ago. He actually, and I can't even come close to managing Gareth's level of story, but Alan Smith did send me a text intended for his son-in-law, Josh, and he sent it to me about 3 weeks ago. Yes.
That's great. Are you sure it wasn't an accidental text on purpose from Kirby?
No. We had been... This is such a shame that WhatsApp is down as we're recording this.
Yes. Is it?
It is, yeah.
Is it down?
You just thought you'd had a quiet afternoon, boy. You don't use it as much, do you?
That explains a lot.
Facebook.
Here we go. Yes.
Oh.
We are in touch a bit because he does do some work for the Malaysian TV, which my company organises for, like, at the moment, Zoom punditry. But he did send me a message saying, "I'm going to your homeland today, Chigwell." So I was particularly unsure what to really say, but I'm a huge fan.
Because the funny thing about that is that, of course, Chigwell, as any Jewish boy knows, is quite a Jewish heartland in Essex.
Did you have like an existential moment of doubt of like, maybe I am?
Yeah. Initially, I thought, has he forgotten that I'm not from Chigwell and have very little to do with Chigwell? So I just wrote back, "Not quite my homeland. What takes you there?" Thinking he'll now acknowledge he's got the wrong person and we'll all move on. But then he said a golf day, and then I'm doing England at Sky tonight. And then about 20 minutes later, he just went, "Sorry, mate, wrong Josh. Meant this for my son-in-law." So that was a bit of interaction with Alan Smith. But we did speak We spoke since he did the North London derby for Malaysian TV 8 days ago.
What's your issue with Smith, Boyd? What's your issue with him?
My issue with Dear Alan is an Arsenal hero. Don't get me wrong. Is that his verdict at the end of the he was on co-coms. He was the analyst, the whatever on Sky, and he said his explanation for Arsenal's mediocre performance was, and I'm paraphrasing roughly, this will happen every now and then with the kids. With the young team, that they will, their lack of experience will tell, and they won't be very good, and they'll go off form. And I'm watching this game, I'm like, hold on a minute, the kids weren't the problem. The problem was players like Thomas Partey and Aubameyang being absolutely terrible, and on the day. And I think to blame, like when Emile Smith-Rowe was absolutely clearly our man of the match, and the young defence did pretty well. But it was not the problem of the kids. I thought that was such a weird verdict.
I think there's a validity to. I mean, I read an article today that we do have the lowest average age in the Premier League this season, lowest starting 11 average age, which is, I think, I mean, there is definitely something in that. But what you'd normally associate with that is a sort of a lack of character, a lack of experience. And actually what we've done with this young team, certainly since the first 3 games, it's a very vastly different team to what started the season, is actually had a little bit of fortitude, had a bit of strength of character. I agree with you in terms of like I mean, I actually think Thomas Partey didn't have a terrible game. I think Aubameyang, and this is the outlier for Aubameyang's performance, the North London derby, when every other game this season he's been different levels of terrible. I think his vim and vigour in the North London derby was great, but that was completely absent. And I heard a few, again, apologists saying, he had to play with his back to goal. It wasn't when he had his back to goal that the problem was. It was when he had the ball at his feet. There was things were breaking down around him. And that was genuinely the only concern for me from that game. Because I think that Brighton are a good side, well coached. They performed very, very well. They've rolled over some good teams this season. And they will continue to do so. And I think at the Emirates a few seasons ago, I watched them play under Potter. And I was very impressed because man for man, they weren't on the same level as us. But actually, as a unit, they're very cohesive and they're a good side. And I think that, it was the only big red flag was Aubameyang's performance for me.
I mean, he was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. Just on Partey, though, his stats are pretty poor. I think he only won a couple of duels, as they called, in midfield. He lost the ball quite frequently. His passing was pretty terrible. So I think even statistically, watching him, I think he has these kinds of games quite frequently.
He is on his day, and then again, going back to the Spurs game, don't want to keep going back to it, but he was phenomenal, and actually those high-risk passes were coming off, but partly because the movement ahead of him was better, and there were people. So I think, and also it's the balance in that midfield, and whisper it, but we missed Granit Xhaka on Saturday.
Well,
I think massively, because there's teams are about sort of again something I drum I've banged in the past, but it's about partnerships at the back, partnerships in midfield, partnerships up front. You hear like from sort of Sutton and Shearer to Adams and Keown, all these partnerships that are cited. But midfield partnerships are key, and without it, I think Lokonga and Partey are too similar. I think they're both very good players, and I really like what I've seen of Lokonga so far. But they're both very similar players, and Xhaka and Partey work as a double act.
I mean, how much do you think? Do you agree? Do you think we missed Xhaka? Do we have to say that, Josh? I mean, bearing in mind that the plan for Arsenal in the summer was to get rid of him. So at least to let him go to Roma, wasn't it? Then that didn't happen, and now we offered him a new contract. Then he came back against Spurs and was heroically good, and now he's injured for a couple of months. So we're all like, it's quite a weird situation with him. It's not like, on the one hand, I feel like I would actually quite like Arsenal to kind of go forward without him, and at least to I mean, he's got to go eventually, some way, shape, or form. I feel this is an opportunity to bed in a Lokonga Partey midfield, maybe, or they are quite similar, but I think maybe. What do you think? Or do you think it's insanity and we really, really miss Xhaka, and it's going to be a difficult couple of months without him?
Well, I think we did miss him. I'm totally with Gareth on him. Look, some of the new signings, I think, have obviously come straight into the team. We're expected to go straight into the team, and we've seen that now with Ramsdale, with White, with Odegaard. I still don't think Lukonga was supposed to come straight into this Arsenal side and start. I still think Thomas Partey and Xhaka will be the default when they're fit. It's a real shame on Granit Xhaka that he's done that. I mean, sent off at Man City. It would have been absolutely ideal if he could have come back and had 6-8 decent games and just calmed that sort of storm down that I think makes so many sort of Arsenal fans doubt him. But it wasn't to be. We're definitely going to miss him. But I tell you, I'm in a couple of different Arsenal WhatsApp groups when it's working, as I'm sure Gareth is, as I'm sure you are. And I had such contrasting kind of conversations going on in one than the other. And I think it depends how you felt after the game on where you really acknowledge where Arsenal are at the moment. If you still think we are the Arsenal and should go to Brighton and just win, then you're disappointed. But I think if you're realistic about where we are at the moment, as a club, what our squad is, a point away at an informed Brighton side in difficult conditions where your striker had a really poor game, where, as you said, Boyd, in Aubameyang, Partey wasn't up to much, Odegaard wasn't up to much. You're not really going to go and win without that. And it probably, when all was said and done, a draw probably felt about right. But if anyone deserved to win, it was obviously Brighton, I think, with the chances that they created. So, I don't know. I felt okay. I mean, I know the point you're making there about Alan Smith and sort of, saying this can happen in a draw and younger players. I think Lee Dixon made a similar kind of, tweet about it's okay, it's a good point, clean sheet, move on. And
I agree with that.
I'm choosing to see the positives.
I agree with you. I agree with you totally on the overall point. I'm happy with the point. I'm absolutely happy with the point. But I think the reason I mentioned the Alan Smith thing, I just think it's a complete load of nonsense that's anything to do with in this particular case, with the youthfulness of our squad. And it's actually to do with senior players who, Odegaard, Odegaard is, you're right, Odegaard is within the Arsenal context compared to,
he's still 23.
I know he's young. No, I know he's young, but he's played a lot of games for Arsenal and rarely any as bad as that.
No,
rarely any games as bad as that.
I think Odegaard's in it. Also, what do you think of Tomiyasu?
He had a difficult.
That was the inconsistency, right? The young player inconsistency. I can't remember who it was. So who tweeted that they were worried there was links between? Was it Jeff between Jenkinson and Tomiyasu?
What did he say?
That's hilarious. I think what I was going to say. I think it's
here. Jeff, I've got it.
And pundits love a bit of narrative, and I think the narrative around Arsenal it's shifted from soft-centered to you'll win nothing with kids. And I think that there is, but and at the same time, I was wary of our profiles of our signings over the summer being so young, when actually what we were missing was leadership and character. I think that the character, it's quite good. I haven't been on since, so I could probably claim I've always felt this way, but this is revisionist. Ramsdale was one of those where I couldn't roll my eyes harder when we signed him, because I was like, well, we don't need him. And yet he has come in and he's given our defence and our team something it was lacking before. So, I mean, the Tomiyasu, go on, Josh, because I thought he was very poor and he was completely owned by Cucurella on Saturday, but he's earned a bad game.
Yeah, the tweet Jeff from our friend Jeff, who was on with us, of course, last week, said, Tomiyasu, I seem to be alone in seeing performances similar to Corporal Jenkinson when he debuted. Started with promise, then realised what pressure it was to play for the Arsenal every week. Let's hope Tommy doesn't go the same way. No,
this is his first dodgy game, and he was facing a player who had a great game and was, he was really on it. And I think he was just taken aback by having to face this kind of really, really impressive left back, and he had a difficult time. I thought he improved in the second half. Actually, I thought defensively, I think he got significantly better in the second half.
That's why he wasn't as bad. You love it. He wasn't as bad. I mean, the who scored thing, the worst 11 of the week. The only one of our players that made it in there was Aubameyang, and I think that.
But what I'm saying is, Aubameyang having an off day and Partey having an off day, are much bigger. And Odegaard, but are much bigger issues in this particular game than I think the youngsters that Alan Smith, I don't know who's vaguely referring to. And your point, Gareth, about the goalkeeper, I mean, is massive, because he is an example of a youngster who has completely refreshed us, compared to the oldster that he's taken over from. And so I think this absolute bullshit about youth being an issue, the whole lesson for me of our last 18 months is the more you rely on the youngsters, the better Arsenal are. I genuinely feel that. And actually, nothing that happened on Saturday disproves that. Particularly the goalkeeper's brilliant. He made that brilliant save, right? His interview after the game, his post-match interview, was unbelievably eloquent, smart, honest, talking about how to improve his goal kicks. I think his goal kick is one of his few flaws. But I mean, just everything about him is. I just think he's a massive breath of fresh air, and a massive jump. I mean, massive is a big word. A big jump, a notable jump over Leno in all kinds of ways.
I mean, I agree. I'm sure. I don't necessarily think he's that much better a goalkeeper. I just think he's what we need more. He's more dominant. I think he's that strength of character, and so there's definitely a touch of the Pickfords about him. And I think that we time.
Oh, but not a twat though. Pickford's a twat, isn't he?
I mean,
is he a twat? That's meaning on Pickford.
I can't stand him.
I think he's an underrated goalkeeper.
I'll explain. I've interrupted, guys. I'll explain at the end.
But Pickford is one of those keepers that will do something silly once in a while, and it will be shown without context of the great games he had. I think Ramsdale will cost us a couple of games this season from bad decisions, but he will also, because I think he's a decisive, aggressive goalkeeper, and therefore will come for crosses and miss them. And that's fine, because actually he's a 23-year-old keeper. And when you talk about experience, most good 23-year-old keepers are reserve keepers. Edison was a reserve at 23. Alisson was a reserve at 23. David De Gea, again, is the outlier in that. And he was phenomenal and was a young keeper. But he was questioned at this age and should be dropped. So, yeah, to have him come in and have such a big impact behind a very young centre-back pairing who are, for me, probably the thing I'm most pleased about. I was saying Gabriel needs to come in. That game I was at Brentford, and it was horrific to watch Pablo Mari. And Ben White got all the pelters, but actually it was his first game with a terrible centre-back alongside him. He's now got a good one, and they look like a good unit.
What did you think of Gabriel's teeth going missing somewhere on the Amex pitch, Boy? Did you see this story?
Yeah, it's a common. It's happened before, isn't it? He's got these. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it happened to an Arsenal player not that long ago, didn't it? So at the Emirates.
I thought it was him.
Was it Gabriel?
I thought so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you see him after the game, wandering around forlornly.
The tooth fairy. He's very busy at his household.
He's missing tooth. Yeah, but I agree with Gareth. I think the big plus point of the game, apart from Emile Smith-Rowe, generally, who's he's pretty much our man of the match every week now, was the defence, and I do think clearly Ben White and Gabriel are forging a really good partnership. It's interesting what was interesting. In fact, let's take a quick break, and I'll ask you about this after the break, which is the playing out from the back that we did not do against Brighton. And we're back from the break. As good as the defence was, as impressive as they were, and we didn't concede a goal, and there was some good, last-minute blocking, and there was there was a brilliant save, as we've already said, from the goalkeeper. But it was weird, wasn't it? And I think possibly a key factor in our mediocrity against Brighton, that we were so scared of playing out from the back. As soon as Brighton showed any sign of pressing us and imposing any kind of concentrated effort to stop us playing out the back, we just gave up and kicked it up pitch. No, you're shaking your head.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
I would put that down to. And again, hopefully Patrick Vieira and the next few managers that we're about to face don't listen to this podcast. But
of course he does.
Here's what I think. Graham Potter got it spot on in stopping us playing. And actually, in so much as the reason why Tierney wasn't so effective going forward is Potter was putting pressure on Tomiyasu, making him unable to flip into a 3 to allow Tierney to go. There was so much good management that picked on our weaknesses, which we do have, and that passing out from the back, it's because they were filling those gaps in between the lines, which is where we like to play. And they were pressing, but they were pressing as a unit, which not every team does. And again, I think kudos to Potter, rather than we were a bit shaky. I think obviously when you've lost a bit of confidence and actually you do just want to get it out, and we were going longer too often. And again, that wasn't playing to Aubameyang's strength. So that wasn't when I was frustrated with him. I think that, yeah, I would say it was horrific conditions. And we were trying to play a game, but we were stopped playing that game by the opposition's manager and their tactics.
Yeah, they did interestingly target Ben White quite a lot, didn't they? I saw there were a lot of kind of players going for him as soon as he got hold of the ball, and I wonder whether that's because obviously they know him pretty much inside out. But don't you think? I think that's absolutely the explanation for it. But don't you think we should have shown more bravery and just fucking went for it anyway? I mean, you're not going to see Man City faced with Brighton pressing our defence, not playing out from the back, are you? They're going to stick with it.
Said that people were below their level, and if you're aware of that when you're playing, you don't have the confidence. Man City, I mean, there's a saying like, well, if we had Man City's players, we probably would.
I know.
But we had people who.
But that is the difference, isn't it?
That. And again, I go back to the Xhaka thing. Xhaka is a key part of that because he's the one that will drop into the space to pull their midfielder. And I think that without that, we were a little bit predictable. Those out balls, people maybe were looking up, and it's an unconscious thing. I don't think it was a conscious. Maybe looking at someone going, well, it's not sticking with that person. And you were right about Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe was phenomenal. I think what was frustrating for me was Smith Rowe was head and shoulders our best player, but also made the worst decision of the night by not squaring it.
Because I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, go on.
Because I think that was I mean, you mentioned about the good save. Ramsdale was decisive in kind of clearing a half cross shot. He didn't actually make a worldy save, whereas we had I think the most presentable chance from Smith Rowe's brilliant movement. But there was a ball on there that would have potentially seen us take the lead.
I think it's harsh on Emil Smith Rowe in that situation. He could have squared it to Xhaka, absolutely, but equally, it was a really good chance for him as well. I think it could and there was a really good bit of defending from the Brighton defender, whoever the fuck that was. I think it was a combination of all those things. I don't think it was like the clearest. It wasn't like the most obvious. He's literally letting the team down by not squaring.
No. I think it was just like time we got away. I think it was so clear. There was a one time that we broke through their defence, and they were a little bit pain. You're right. It was good defending. It showed him a little bit further out than he'd like to be on his right foot. But yeah, I mean, watching him play is joyous. So I think this isn't me kicking Smith Rowe by any stretch of the imagination. I thought he was brilliant. And I thought that, again, you mentioned earlier on about the young players, and maybe it is a little bit about exuberance of youth and not feeling like a weight on the shoulders, but perhaps it's just because our young players are our better players. I think that's the other thing. Like Saka and Smith Rowe are better every week because they're not better than the rest of our squad.
Yeah. What do you think, Josh? I've seen a few people say Saka's out of form, and that kind of. I mean, he was great against. I mean, everyone was great against Spurs, weren't they? Let's face it, the whole team was kind of brilliant. I think he was looked a bit knackered the previous couple of games. I mean, he's played a part. I think he's played every single game this season, hasn't he? Pretty more or less.
Yeah, so, even the League Cup. Yeah,
oh my God, even the League Cup. That was insanity. But I didn't think he looked that tired in the game yesterday on Saturday. I thought he was decent. I thought there were definitely like notable worse performances than his, and I still think he gave us some of that energy whenever he possibly could that we sorely lack otherwise.
I totally agree with you. I think he did look a real threat. He very early on in the game sort of jinked his way into the box and had a sort of fairly decent effort on goal. And he's still the player at the moment that is most likely to get sort of Arsenal fans off their seat in terms of creativity and likely to take opportunities. I think there's an inevitability that at some point this season he can't simply be put in for every game, and there are options on the bench in a way that maybe there weren't last season. You know, obviously Pepe being the obvious one that's being kept out at the moment, not to mention Martinelli, or even if we'll see sort of Tavares put in a sort of attacking role at some point during the season as well. So I think there'll be a point in the season where he's on the bench and he gets that break. But right now, heading him into an international break, I think he was the right decision. I mean, he didn't get taken off until, right towards injury time, did he?
Yeah,
Go on, Gary.
This is my point, in that because he is so high energy and because of the way he I think doesn't conserve his energy, I think he is the most marked flagger in our team. Like, when he is tired, it's really obvious he's tired. And I think that if any criticism can be levied, it shouldn't be at him. Even against Spurs, when we lost Xhaka and when Saka got tired, they had more space in midfield. Arteta, in my opinion, should be perhaps a bit more decisive and notice, you're right, that he's one of our most threatening attacking players. But when he's tired, actually, he loses his man for runs. The Spurs goal, as pointless as it was, came down his channel because he was tired. And I think that he is someone who has not had the rest over the summer as well. So he at some point, hopefully this international break will be an opportunity for him to not play every minute of every game. I think my understanding is him and Partey both requested to play in that League Cup game to try and get some form, some rhythm back, because I think Saka he's played a part in each game, but he hasn't really played well. And I think that maybe playing himself into a bit of form was his logic behind wanting to play in that League Cup game.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. What did you? I read I want to talk about the rain, the weather, because I read one of those real hipster Twitter threads about the game with some, and I forgot to favourite it, so I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it. Where some dude basically said, "You're all morons, Arsenal fans. You don't understand why we lost that game, or we didn't win that game. Rather, we didn't lose it. We drew it." And he went on about, he was constantly all the way through this kind of in-depth, quite intense analysis. There's lots of stuff about Brighton, how Brighton pressed us, particularly specific details. It was, but it was one of those rather pompously written, only I understand what's going on kind of pieces, Twitter threads. And he kept saying, and then there was the weather, and blah, 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 and then there was the weather. And I was thinking, hold on, the one thing you have neglected to realise about this game was that Brighton had to cope with the same fucking weather. It wasn't just Arsenal that were playing in torrential wind and rain.
They know what it's like to play in
right. Right. I mean, but I am going to ask you about the weather, because I do think, mentally more than anything, some of the players, I'm going to conjecture now, but I'm going to mention Aubameyang maybe, I do feel like when they see that level of weather as they walk out onto the pitch on Saturday evening, I think it's an issue. I really do. Or am I going mad?
They don't like a wet and windy night.
Don't like it up when it comes to the rain and the wind. Josh?
Well, the main, I'm not sure I'm going to go with this. I mean, I don't have the stats on, Arsenal playing in the rain against Arsenal not playing in the wind and rain.
Well,
that would be an interesting.
Find those stats.
It'll be an interesting project for someone to do if there's a student listening who has got time to do it. What was funny about the rain was, did you see that sign that? Well, I'm dubious, right? There was that bloke who had the sign that said Emil, I'm soaked. Can I have your shirt? Did you see this on? They did show it on the Sky cameras, and it was a grown man with a little boy. And I almost feel the little boy was brought along purely so the man could get the shirt. And their sign did look a bit ridiculous because it was so sodden you could just about make out the words. But that was successful. But I don't know. Did they feel that because they were soaked, they're more likely to get the shirt? Because I think usually
it was successful, so he did get the shirt. This is one of my pet peeves at the moment, is about these fucking signs. Which
Gareth, I discussed this last week. I'm sure you'll have heard the podcast in which I railed against the signage. Yes. Carry on though. Just to make it clear, the point isn't made.
But I was at Brentford. My view was obliterated for a while by one of those effing signs, and it wasn't. Do you know what? That wasn't the time for it either.
What did the sign say? What was your sign?
I think it was asking Saka for his shirt. Was the sign near me. I think that, but you're right. I think perhaps it is these young, innocent children that are doing it, but there's definitely an element of, parental.
Yeah, we are suspicious. I might just take a sign asking for El Nenis because it's sort of, no one else is going to be, right? No. If you just take a sign, he doesn't even have to get on the
really
pitch.
Niche player. I think he's more niche than El Neni, maybe, because I think there's an element of cult hero about El Neni. Surely, Callum Chambers. I don't know.
Well, he's not even on the bench, so it'd be very difficult.
Rob Holding.
Holding, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Suarez, Cedric, give me your shirt.
No
one wants.
I want his shirt. I want every shirt he has, so he never can wear one again for the Arsenal.
It's a weird way. Is it Callum Chambers just obviously not even in a squad of 19, isn't it?
Yeah,
really,
I mean, fair enough. I love him as a man.
20. Sorry, we got 9 subs. Is that right? Yeah, it's 20.
Yeah. But you wouldn't.
Didn't pay enough attention to the bench. I thought he had been on it recently enough, because I've seen, when the groups of 3 go out to warm up, there's like an A team and a B team, and I always feel so much for the B team subs who are just going through the motions. They're like, I'll clap the crowd, they'll be like, yeah, and then Pepe and Lacazette and someone else will come out and go, these are the guys that are going to come on. And I think Callum Chambers, unless there's injury crisis, because I don't think I think he's our second choice right back, surely. Please God.
Well,
Cedric.
Yeah, Cedric is in there ahead of him. I don't think he's injured, is he? I mean, who knows? Maybe.
He's just not been involved, and I think he's out of contract at the end of the season. Callum Chambers, so I suspect we're probably seeing his final.
Let me ask this question, because you said earlier, Gareth, about how you talking about Aubameyang's performance against Spurs was the outlier. Is there a question that the entire team's performance against Spurs is the outlier, and this is our level, or is that too harsh?
I think that's too harsh. I think that there's been signs from everyone else in the squad, and yes, performance is dipped from certain key players, and maybe I'm a party apologist, but I think that he offered more than Ødegaard and Aubameyang, but I equally admit his performance wasn't up to the same level as it was the week before. I think that certain players, Ødegaard, Tomiyasu, have earned a poor game by actually having a consistency and an aptitude and application that Aubameyang doesn't have. And I think that those young players, Smith Rowe, Saka, there is enough throughout the whole season, even when, take the Man City game out of it, possibly, and probably the Chelsea one, and maybe the Brentford one, but taking a lot, this last 4, when this team's been together, and it's really only these last 4 games that this team's been together. And I think that in every game there's been different levels of positive performance from everyone in the squad, whereas we won at Burnley despite Aubameyang. We beat Norwich despite Aubameyang. I think that actually you are right when you laud our young players, because they are the ones that have won us those games.
Would you just play Lacazette instead of Aubameyang then, or Martinelli or whatever? Are you saying we should drop Aubameyang?
I would play Lacazette, because I think he is a better centre forward. I don't think I think Aubameyang is a busted flush.
Wow. Controversial. Bear 2, Bear 1. Josh?
I think Bear 2 has gone a little bit far on the busted flash. I think we've still seen enough to acknowledge the talent that he has. And I think even going back into the stadium or going to watch Arsenal with Aubameyang up front, there's still that element of expectation. I'm not sure that Lacazette would make me feel any more confident of going into a match day that we're going to win the game. Could we see more opportunities where Aubameyang is put back out on the left and we try Lacazette up front in games? Yeah, I think we will. Definitely see that.
I think that would be the wrong thing to do, because I think we've got better inside lefts than Aubameyang.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We've got players who are more effective. I think that you can say about the expectation, but is that not based on what he has done, not what he is doing? Because he is missing presentable chances. He is miscontrolling a lot of very simple balls in good spaces and being easily dispossessed. There isn't that same thing with Lacazette. Won't give you much more than a 7 out of 10 some games, but he will at least transition the ball. He will at least hold that ball up and he will protect it with his life. Whereas when Aubameyang's not playing well, he stinks the place out.
Well, I think you obviously realise it more because he's Arsenal's frontman, and we were so blunt on Saturday, and that's incredibly sort of fresh in our memory. I'm not sure that he had a shot, did he, really, on Saturday, or certainly found himself with any presentable opportunity. Boyd, are you with me on this? We're not writing off Aubameyang yet, surely.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't even drop him yet. I think he's been off form clearly, but I still think like there's glimmers. I feel of, and I think I think there were enough disappointing performances against Brighton for it not to be put at his doorstep. But if it carries on like this, then you do start to get worried. I definitely, you'd have to not notice the fact that his form has dipped significantly.
But when do you think the dip started, Boyd and Josh? I think the dip started 18 months ago. I think
it did.
Ever since the FA Cup final, there's been a slow, steady descent, and that's why I'm concerned. I think he's clearly sort of a global football megastar, but he's just and I don't want to get people have cited malaria, people for lack of energy, but I'm not an expert in this, but I know he doesn't pass the eye test for me, and that worries me.
It is worrying. Don't get me wrong. It is worrying. Yeah, but I'd still give him a few more. I think I'd give him a while yet before I dropped him. I'd still, and I'm famous for my love of Lacazette, but I'd still rather see Auba up front at the moment than him. Go on, Josh.
I think Aubameyang will win one of these upcoming 2 home games against Palace or Aston Villa, and he will come find you in the crowd, along with Boyd's mate, who's going to pop in and say hello.
He will point out. I'll have a sign asking for a shirt. Is that why he'll find me in the crowd?
Have a sign just saying, "You are a busted flush. Can I have your shirt?"
Yeah. I'm the bear. I'm a bear. Can I have your shirt? I've run 5 marathons. Can I have your shirt? Joe Collins called me a cunt. Can I have your shirt? These are all very good possibilities. Yes. I think he'll be all right. What can let me also ask about the manager, because I've definitely been disappointed in him the last so obviously at the beginning of the season. But I said in the last podcast, I think if he needed to name an unchanged side, that was before we realised that Xhaka was going to be out for a couple of months. But he effectively did stick with, as much as he possibly could, an unchanged team from the Spurs game by bringing Lokonga again instead of Xhaka, and I was very happy with that, and I think that showed a kind of maturation, is that the right word, of his attitude, and stop fucking tinkering every single time the team plays, and stop messing about with the formations, etc., every single game, depending on who he plays. So I was pleased, even though the performance ended up being quite mediocre. I thought it was a good decision on his part to stick pretty much 90 as much as he could with that team. Josh?
Well, we know the team now, don't we? And that's an unusual. We haven't been in this position for ages. Yeah. He's clearly decided Ramsdale's his goalkeeper. He's got Bellerin out the club to bring in Tomiyasu. He's spent 50 million on White and decided Gabriel will be the one next to him. Tierney, there's no debate on. Partey and Xhaka were clearly the two, with Sambi Lokonga as a backup. I think there was some thought, can Odegaard and Smith Rowe play in the same team? But he's found this way to make it work with them. And if there is a little bit of rotation, I think the next one down is probably Pepe as sort of not quite 12th man, but something close to that. And then, we'd like to obviously, see some more from Lacazette as well. But, you look at the rest of it, you would say you can't see an obvious reason why El Neni will get game time, or Maitland-Niles, or a Holding, or, Suarez Tavares. It will be injuries, of which you expect there will be less, and there are a lot less games to play. So, again, we've got Leeds coming up in a couple of weeks in the Carabao. You could probably already predict 7 of the changes, and we'll go from there. But it's an incredibly sort of settled team, and let's enjoy that, because we haven't had that recently.
It is a settled team, isn't it, Gath? Except you're advocating you should drop Aubameyang. But
I think we have another option, and it depends. And I also agree with you, Boyd, that a level of sort of consistency in selection will more likely create consistency of performance, because players play with each other more often, play better with each other. And I think that the only reason why I believe there should be a change is because someone is so woefully out of form. But then the other option is someone who is so woefully out of contract very soon. So I think that it's one area, and I know for a fact in the know or whatever, it wasn't a secret that we were willing to get rid of one or both of those 2 elderly strikers over the summer as well. I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? Because they're not. My daughter often goes, "He's old for a footballer." That's her thing. Like, but he's not really old. No, he's not really old. But I think we could be improved by a better centre forward, by a better striker. And I think there are players out there, but I think that will come as the next transit in the next phase, which will be over next summer. I think we will move away from those 2 as the option, and hopefully a combination of the both will get us into a decent position to be able to build.
I'm going to slightly contradict what I said with this question, which is that much as I'm happy with the fact that he sticks with this, he knows his best team seemingly finally after a long time of not knowing his best team. Having said that, and they play mostly in a kind of 4-2-3-1 formation, don't they? Especially when Odegaard is playing and you've got Smith Rowe and Saka other side of him behind Aubameyang. But as I've been saying as well, I would quite like to see them try the 4-3-3. Against, in quotes, lesser teams, against teams that aren't going to completely destroy us in midfield, maybe. And I know it's, with maybe the single pivot rather than the double pivot of Partey. And I know that, and from I heard, I think it was on 5 Live or somewhere, someone saying that that is definitely Arteta's dream. Is the
we did it against Burnley?
Yeah, right. We did it against Burnley. Exactly.
We played the team against Burnley, and actually, what you say about the lesser teams, and this is again, God, I'm sort of grandpa fanboy, but there are fewer lesser teams now. The quality of the lower to mid-table clubs has risen, and a few years ago, you'd have looked at Aston Villa at home and thought, that's 3 points. I'm genuinely concerned I'm even concerned about Palace because of the Vieira thing, because they've got some potent threat on the counter-attack. I'm more concerned about Villa. And that's funny because actually Aston Villa are, in my mind's eye, not a competitor, but they are now. And I think that, and they are well coached and they've got some very good players. And I think that therefore, by playing in a more gung-ho fashion, we will get picked off by savvy managers, and I think and good sides. So you probably have got 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League, Norwich being one, where you can play a more free-form attacking formation and go like Thomas. You just sit and but he's not actually a defensive midfielder. So again, you could say, well, actually, you need someone who, if you just want someone like, I'm trying to think, Fabinho at Liverpool, who could do that, where we're happy, or Rodri at City. Partey is actually more than that for us. So I think that, in that role, you automatically stop what for me is his best part of his game, which is that aggressive passing through the lines.
Oh, he definitely does that as well. I think Arteta thinks he can do both of those things. Arteta definitely thinks he can. I mean, he's actually played him, a couple of times on his own, effectively at the base of the midfield. I just think we've still got a big problem with creating chances, right? And not, and we had it against Brighton. We've had it even in the games, we won 1-0 a couple of times. We're doing better defensively than we are attackingly, to use to invent a word. And I just feel that regardless of what happened against Spurs, that's still a big issue for us, is creating chances. I feel it's more likely we create chances with the 4-3-3 than in this other formation. I know, and Dan Baldwin always, whenever I bring this up a lot in our WhatsApp group, and Dan always says, "Oh, we're going to be over on the midfield. We can't do that." I think we can go for it just against certain teams, and maybe the number of teams we can do it with is dwindling. But I don't know. I just think.
I was hoping Dan would bust out the same analogy that I'm about to now, which is, I actually think it's a Rafa Benitez thing. I used to sort of attribute it to Wenger, but I think it's the blanket analogy, which is the blanket on most teams isn't long enough to have over your feet and over your chest. You need to do one or the other. And actually what we are at the moment is it's better for us to stop the goals and use the opportunities we have than it is to allow space at the back and then focus on the creativity side. And I think that actually the best teams are built from the back. Even the sort of the Chelsea juggernaut everyone's talking about this season, they're great, they've got Lukaku. They are stopping teams scoring against them. That's the first thing they're doing. And they've got some very good defenders and they've got an excellent goalkeeper. And then they can go forward. City, who are a great side, are drilled at the back. I mean, you saw the defending. I don't know whether you watched the second half. The second half, but they are a defensively minded team when they are defending.
Yeah, but
I mean, but
they play. They're the ultimate 4-3-3. City's the ultimate 4-3-3. I mean, that's what Arteta wants. I know that. Of course, they're better players, but Liverpool 4-3-3. It is there's an interesting. I just think, like, are we going to settle for being a kind of mid-table team that grinds out 1-0? And by the way, I think that's a risk as well, because I also think actually you're going to get times when we could easily have let in a goal against Brighton if Brighton hadn't been so shit. Let's face it, at shooting. They barely got 1 or 2 shots on target. They had about 20 shots. Any other team, he would have conceded. That's the thing. Think about that. If we'd have lost that game, with those tactics, I just think I see a lot of really good attacking players who Arteta has not managed to work out how to get the best out of them, and that does worry me. And I'm just saying 4-3-3 might be a way out of that, but I acknowledge the risk. I acknowledge what you're saying. Josh?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you look at the last couple of seasons and we have noticeably improved defensive-wise in terms of the goals, conceded. Like to last season, we conceded 39 goals. I mean, it was less than Man United, less than Liverpool, less than Leicester and West Ham and Tottenham, who all finished above us, right? Yeah. And that was following on from...
Thank you for that great point.
So we've clearly been heading in this direction of, like, what Gareth was sort of saying, really, stabilise and concede fewer goals, and we'll work out how to sort of create enough. Obviously, the problem is we're scoring a lot less than what we did under peak Wenger or even under Emery. But it feels like for so long we've sat here on this podcast, haven't we? And we've felt so frustrated about not having a solid central defence partnership, let's say, and for the first time in a long time, it kind of hasn't been perfect, but you can see the light. You can see a goalkeeper that everyone is starting to get behind, and a left back who everyone loves. And Jeff's not into the new right back, but we'll see what comes from there. But you just start to see the framework of a team where you go, okay, I can see this, and there is enough attacking talent at the club that. As we get through this season, I think we are likely to improve. And I felt if we are sort of 8th to 10th halfway through, then when we have a kind of ambitions there for top 6 that are realistic.
I think you used the word team there, and that's it for me. I think this is starting to be, and going all the way back to your point about the manager, Boyd. This is now Arteta's team to be judged on. Like there is very little that he has inherited. And we are playing as a team now. It's not a free-flowing, scoring multiple goals team, but it is a team that is seemingly more cohesive. There are those partnerships I was talking about are maybe stronger at the back in the midfield, and maybe in those sort of like in between. I mean, I love our movement off the ball from Smith Rowe and Ødegaard and Saka and Pepe when he's on. There is an exciting element about that. I think that this is it. It's building blocks. And you mentioned earlier on, Josh, about what Arsenal are people thinking, the Arsenal, and I made the mistake of, when already feeling slightly emotional watching the Arsene Wenger focused fever pitch, the BBC thing the other day about kind of the foreign era and Wenger coming in, and got me thinking back to how much fun it was to see. But the game's changed, and we were so far back, and we needed to make decisive changes. I think we've done it. Whether Arteta's the manager that will see us all the way through, I don't know. But actually, it is a rebuilding job. The one caveat of negativity I'd put in, and is about the way the general club's being run in terms of, are these people the ones who will take us to the next stage in terms of from manager to Edu et al. But I think that on the whole, there is and God, it's great to see youthful talent that wants to play for Arsenal. I've said this to both of you so many times. It's my biggest frustration when people go, we're not being linked with big names. So I mean, big names. I was like, I want big names. I want players that want to wear the shirt, that will feel like it's the pinnacle of their careers. There was an opportunity when Leicester were selling Mahrez. I was like, please let us sign him. People were like, oh, we want to sign, and I forget who it was, but it was whoever the hipster's choice was from the continent, because he was the bigger name. But this guy could be brilliant for us, and he'll want to play for us, and that's what I like about the profiles of our signing now. Ramsdale is loving playing for Arsenal. Ben White is loving playing for Arsenal. I could go on to sort of be more Churchillian, but you get.
Yeah, well, this is a rousing oration. Thank you. No, I agree with you. I still have my doubts about Arteta though, as well as the hierarchy.
So do I. But I think.
But I agree. You're right. There's a lot to be very excited about in terms of that.
You can get behind the players,
the kids.
There's a connection there.
As Alan Smith says, it's all about. All the positivity comes from the kids. We should. We've got like 2.5 weeks, haven't we, to the next game? I mean, that's boring for a start. Monday Night Football on the 18th of October, in which Patrick Vieira returns. I mean, that's going to be a great atmosphere, isn't it? Just for that alone, just to welcome back Patrick Vieira. And then, as you said, Crystal Palace looked really good. Came back from 2-0 down. He's got them working pretty hard. What do we think is going to happen in that game? What's your score prediction, Josh?
Well, firstly, it's going to be so lovely to have Vieira back, and I think there's a section of the fan base that will hope one day he's in the home dugout, so to speak. I think that would be a fairly romantic story if he did come back, and I'm sure he will get serenaded unless Crystal Palace go ahead, in which case it will probably be quite the opposite. I mean, Palace have been a little bit unpredictable. I mean, to claw that back against Leicester, incredibly impressive. The other day, Edouard has looked a pretty solid signing. Look, I don't want to fall into the trap of we are the Arsenal and it's only Crystal Palace at home and therefore we should be turning up and winning. But the players that we've got, I think we've shown enough at home in the last couple of home games that make me feel confident. So I'm going to say 2-0 to the Arsenal.
Another clean sheet. Oh.
Wow, that is confident. Gareth?
I think obviously I've got nothing but love for Patrick Vieira, and I quite liked the game before the Spurs game when Palace had just turned Spurs over, and the first 10 minutes of the Norwich game was just Vieira songs. I think he set up Palace to be quite open and free flowing, which will probably play to our strengths in that they won't stop us playing so much as they'll try and find the pocket space. Wilf Zaha's a dangerous player, and he'll be up against probably the only. I mean, maybe it's based on the Brighton performance, but I think Tomiyasu can be got at, and I think that's my concern. I think they might score, but I think we'll edge it. And you know how much I love predictions, so I'll go with 2-1 to Arsenal.
Very good. Imagine if Patrick Vieira outclasses Arteta. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Coaching wise and tactically, if we lose that game, I think that's an interesting.
Well, they've made even more progressive young player signings than we have. They've completely refreshed their squad.
Yeah.
They had the oldest average age last season. I think they're third behind us now in terms of who wrote the average age article earlier on, say me. But they've got some, and Elisa came on for and looked very good for them. I think they will be dangerous, and we would be foolish to take them lightly.
Yeah, I'm going to predict 1-1. I think it's going to be 1-1. Thanks very much to the two Bears. It's been a joy as ever. Gareth,
Thank you for having me.
Josh, Landy. We'll have a little break now until we can come back after that Monday Night Football. I guess we'll be back on that Tuesday, the 19th. That's my prediction. Thanks very much. Bye.
If you want to advertise on or sponsor this show, check us out at playbackmedia.co.uk.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Let me tell you why we have a policy-first agenda on Indisputable. I don't care what side of the political aisle you may be a part of. A policy-first agenda is a person-first agenda. My life was tremendously impacted by good policy. I know that policy is a social contract between you and the government. We're in the business of making sure we hold the government accountable to have a better social contract for every single one of you. Listen to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Take our conversation with you during your commute. New episodes available daily on the Acast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast recommends.